Next talk, Michał and Tomasz. They work at DreamLab, and they're going to talk about building the biggest video-on-demand app in Poland called VOD.pl. They were new to React Native when they started building it, so they have an interesting perspective, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they have to say. Let's give a round of applause for them.
Oh, just a second. Okay, and here we are.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Tomasz Sochacki. I am head of mobile development in DreamLab. Together with Michał, we'll tell you today about our first experience with React Native. As a total beginners, Michał, as a software developer, will tell you more technical stuff and learnings and his perspective, and I will do it more from the manager point of view. Before I start our story, I want to also give you an idea in what environment we did this project. In DreamLab, we provide digital publishing solutions and media technologies to companies in Europe. As an IT hub of linear access printer company, we also provide IT services and development to more than 100 brands. One of those brands is VOD.pl. VOD.pl is the biggest video-on-demand service in Poland. And the subject of this talk is VOD.pl application built in React Native. VOD.pl application contains set of functionality like browsing and searching video catalog, in-app purchase, Chromecast functionality, of course, watching movies, and it works with iOS and Android platform for smartphones and tablets. But VOD.pl service is not only the app. First of all, actually, is web applications, desktop and mobile, and TV apps. Historically, all those applications were maintained and developed by different teams. Our web applications was in hands of our internal team, but mobile applications and TV applications were developed and maintained by external companies. It's because at that time, when those applications were created, we didn't have in DreamLab competencies to do this. When the business came to us, VOD business came to us with idea to refresh the mobile applications, they also has an idea to refresh the brand and implement new strategy. We understood that this setup cannot be continued anymore. We sit with the business and understood that the goal is to have one product, one video product for all devices. Business wanted to give the similar experience to its users across all platforms. Of course, there was also something more. In the long term, we wanted to gain some development cost optimization. So we understood that definitely went to go away from this previous setup, and as we had mobile development competencies inside already, we could go from here to the idea of having one team responsible for all. We already did that a few times in our group, and it looks much better than the previous setup. But we also learned from a previous project that it's not working the way that could allow us to achieve the goals. But it actually means that you have in one team 3 sub-teams. You have web developers, you have Android developers, and iOS developers. And it creates some issues, because you have to ensure competencies and capacity for each sub-team. You have developers which have competency for one platform, and they solve problems only for one platform, for their platform. They cannot cooperate together and have a feeling of this one team. And if you are a developer of one platform, and you contribute only to part of the product, it's difficult for this developer to feel responsible for the whole. So we sit and agreed that there must be something that unites all developers, and we understood that this must be a technology. This was the moment that we turned our eyes to React Native. We start to evaluate the technology. We look at its state at that time, its development, we check pros and cons, we do a lot of learning of case studies and success stories of different companies. And the more we look into this, we understood that there is something that we want to test on our own. And this try was with VOD web team. We asked them to do a proof of concept, and they did it. In 2 days, they were able to provide a basic application, which actually was featuring its main functionality. We were able to list movies and show detailed movie screen and as well play the video. So for the management team and the business team, it was really breaking point. They achieved that in 2 days. So we definitely want to look deeper into this, but at that time, we already understood that this is very unlikely that we will be able to do this application fully React Native, because in the mobile application within the group, we have some standards which require some native SDKs. So definitely, we need to understand how bridging between JavaScript and native code works. And this means that we need to involve iOS and Android developers into the project. So I decided to come to iOS and developers and invite them to this project. And actually, when I did it, they actually had only 2 questions. Yeah, that's true. They weren't happy about this idea. But the more I encouraged them to look under React Native itself, to not build their opinion about opinion of other colleagues, iOS and Android colleagues, which heard about React Native many things. And I had to use a little bit of my personal charm as well. They go for it. And we agreed on the 4-week test in which we wanted to really find a limitation of React Native which could disqualify this technology in this project. So we were validating the more important features that we want to have in this application, like integration with native player, because we have in the group our own native player with lots of reporting stuff for ads and a lot of things. So we didn't want to implement it once again in JavaScript. We want to check if this external internal native SDKs will work. This application, if we can provide Chromecast and AirPlay functionality, push notification, and a few others. We also were interested how this mixing between native and React Native views could work, what's potential between sharing code between iOS, Android, and maybe in future in the web, how this navigation could work, what kind of performance issue we can expect, and if we can do this also for Android, TV, and Tizen. So 4 weeks hard work of 4 people, and the result was this one. So we actually couldn't find any blocker to do this. Although we really identified many issues and many risks, there was no blocker, with no limitation of React Native, which could not allow us to do this. So in the management team, we are actually ready to take the risk and go for it. But developers were not sharing this position. As I said before, we were totally unexperienced with React Native. None of the developers in the company has any clue about React Native, so everything we need to discover on our own. And if you have ambitious developers, the development team, this team wants to deliver high-quality code. They want to deliver high-quality product. And if they want to do this with the technology they don't know, this creates a lot of doubts and dilemmas. So we had to deal with it. As I said, we have very experienced native and iOS and Android developers. So for them, going really native was like going to the party on the beach. However, going React Native was like invitation for a journey to the dark, scary forest with our map. So definitely, if we want to succeed with this project, we in the management team understood that we need to change conditions and help the team feel more comfortable, more confident, and more safe in this project. So we had tasks to do. So what we did, we changed the condition of the project, and we took away the responsibility for the failure completely from the team. We clearly communicate that if this will be a failure, this is all on us, all under the management team. We ensure that the business understands all benefits, but also the risk, and we got your support to this innovative approach. We removed deadline to make the timeline more flexible and reduce the pressure from the team. And we assure all support, full support to the team on each stage of the project. We've changed condition with to this project, both web developer teams in VOD and native developers. Mobile team, one of the mobile teams agreed to go for it. And we could set up the team around React Native. So we could have one team with different competencies, but united in React Native technology. We did that, we set up this team, and we asked the team to do their best to achieve the goal.
Yeah, but there were still some challenges staying ahead of us. And we thought that maybe you are in a similar position that we were a year ago, or maybe you will be about to face similar challenges as we did. So why would you come up with the same failures and the same challenges as we? Maybe you could learn a little bit from our experiences. So as Tomek said, it was a VOD application. We decided to implement it in React Native. So actually the most important part of VOD application is video player, and we started with identifying if it can be done in React Native. So what's the most important part of this screen? For us, it is the player. And this is the expected design of our application. It actually now looks like that. You can download it from Google App Store or Apple Store. But fortunately, or unfortunately, we had our native player developed within the group by a different team in different location. So we thought, well, just wrap it up into View Manager, embed it into React Native view hierarchy, and it should work. But it did. Instead of displaying the actual video, the sound was playing fairly cool, but there was no video whatsoever. So we decided that we need to look for some other solutions, and maybe those solutions are on the market somewhere. But we had our very specific needs. First of all, we needed to support multiple platforms, this player that we were about to find on the market and potentially embed into React Native View Manager. So it needed to support both Android and iOS, and potentially even web. It needed to support AdWords because it's the vital part of our business. It needed to support DRM because of our licensing limitations, and it should be earn-friendly, unlike our native player. We looked around the web for the solution, and we found totally nothing. Like, nothing was both meeting our expectations and good in terms of performance, good enough to use it into our application. So we are developers. We are native developers. So we are trying to do it on our own and maybe fix this issue with native player. As I said, the native player was the responsibility of the other team, so we told them to take a look at that and maybe fix the player internally. But at the same time, we decided to take a look how React Native actually works. So basically, it's a native application. It consists of a native screen, which takes entire available space. And in most cases, it embeds a React Native application into whole screen. So we thought, okay, so if we cannot embed our native player inside this React Native application, so maybe let's do it the other way around. Just reduce the space that React Native application takes, and into the remaining space, you can fit our internal player. And voila, it worked. Except it didn't. Like at the beginning, it seemed to be working. We went with it. We decided, okay, there is at least some kind of solution. It has some flaws, but maybe we can deal with them later. And we went on with developing other features. But then we realized that what we really have in our application are two separate React Native applications. One of them, additionally, does not take entire screen. So navigation between those two native screens and two React Native application was really hard to manage. Additionally, those two React Native application had shared Redux store for some reasons, and that was also making it more complicated. Those two navigation solutions that we are using, so navigating between native screens is totally different than navigating between screens in React Native, so we needed to handle it somehow. It was doable, but difficult, especially on Android. And we noticed that there are some crucial differences between this mixed screen and other screens. For example, the player was loading really at first, and only then, after like half a second, the rest of the screen was loaded, and that was really unacceptable. And it was only one of UI limitations that this solution introduced. So, if you ask us, it was nightmare. Never do that. Luckily, the other team was able to fix our player and make it React Native friendly, so that we just embedded it as we wanted at the beginning. And our advice is always look for this solution. Don't do some nasty hacks. It will kill you later on. But we were very happy and satisfied and excited about finishing this up. And very soon we got stuck again. Because, especially on low-end Android, we got very, very laggy interactions. Like, after tapping on some button, it took about 5 seconds, half a second, 500 milliseconds, to any interaction to come up. And we've noticed that since we are all native developers, we were developing this React Native application as if it was native. So we didn't care what happens with screens that are not visible. But even if they are not visible in React Native, they are still there. So if there is some change in Redux store, there is a high chance that this will make those screens to re-render. And that's what happened. When we had like 2, 3, 4, 17 stacked screens, it took forever for them to re-render because we did it really bad. Like, we made our state management in Redux very, very badly because we had no experience whatsoever. We just followed every introduction tutorial, and it came up that the default does not scale that well. So what we wanted to do is to fix it somehow, and then we decided that, hey, maybe we don't need Redux whatsoever. Like, we anyway download all the needed data with GraphQL, so maybe we just can manage the state locally. And we realized that that is the goal. Like, why use Redux if you don't need it? Maybe you can do it easier. So that's what helped us. Another thing that might surprise you when you are beginning with React Native is that some fairly easy scenarios might not work as you would expect. In our case, we had this requirement to implement very specific for Polish market analytics tool. And luckily, they also had their public SDK available for both Android and iOS. So, same story again. We just decided to wrap it into a React Native module and just use those exposed method. And on Android, every usage of that method made an Android application crash. We had no idea why. There was no stack trace at all. It worked perfectly on native. And to be honest, we still don't know what was the reason for that. There was some like specific operations on Java threads, and probably for some reason it didn't interact with React Native that well. So we are developers, so we are looking for solutions. We found one. We just took the specification of this library and developed it from scratch in JavaScript. That was very great. And that's the surprise part. After developing for a newer version of React Native, I believe that it was like .56 or 57, I don't remember, it turned out that the same library just started working. We have no idea why, but it works. So what we did, we just get rid of those unnecessary JavaScript code, wrapped those SDK into native module, and we were a little bit sad because we needed to delete our very well-crafted code. But it's better it's better to use something that is already there. So after this situation, we came up with some strategy how to approach updates in React Native. So first of all, we make an first attempt as soon as possible, like the day after the release is there, just to get some idea how many work is required from us. And on our day-to-day development, whenever we face some issue that is in React Native, we, instead of working around it or hacking it somehow, we just live with it. Like we say, okay, if we don't really need it now, just defer it, just live with it, and maybe before the final version of our application, it will just work somehow magically, because React Native development is like going really fast, so it might happen. But also we are prepared for the pain while updating, because it really kicked us sometimes that it took longer than we anticipated. So because of all of that, I wanted just to share with you some final results and how this application really looks now from the development perspective. So this is the chart which shows how much code is written in each language specific for platform. It's either Java on Android and Swift and Objective-C on iOS, or mostly TypeScript. And it seems that two main takeaways from this chart is that most of code is written in TypeScript, but still there is a quite not so small chunk of code written in native code. And why is that in our case? First of all, as Tomek mentioned, we have our internal requirements. We need to do that to be compliant with other applications within our group and to meet Polish market demands. We have our player that we needed to embed, and it's quite a lot of code. Some external dependencies that we needed to use does not really have publicly available React Native modules, so we needed to write them on our own. And some of them are not of sufficient quality for us. So we also needed to write the specific use cases on our own. And a quick summary, what we'd love to know when we are beginning with this project. And if it's only one thing that you will take from this presentation, let it be it. Don't create mixed native and React Native screens. It's pain. Like, it will kick you in the future for sure. And also, even though Redux is in all beginner guides, consider it as one of the options and not something that must be in your application. There are many other state management libraries. Maybe you don't even need any library whatsoever. Maybe your state is not that complicated after all. Update React Native as soon as possible. Some of your issues might be fixed just because of that, and that's a really good idea. As a result of that, postpone workaround as hacks as long as possible. And remember that you might still, in some cases, need iOS and Android developers, or at least basic Android and iOS skills. It's not always the case, but it was in our application. So just keep that in mind. Beware of something that I didn't really mention, but beware of lots of images on one screen. Like, it happens on Android on some devices that this might cause them to crash because of out-of-memory errors. It's not handled that well yet. And if you can, just simply use Expo. If Expo is sufficient for you, then you will probably not have those problems that we faced, but that we finally overcome. And we came up with an app that we are quite proud of. It has very good quality as comparing to other applications in our group. Like 99.66% of users never experienced any crash. almost none of the crashes that those few users experienced were specific to React Native. They were mostly in libraries, in native libraries that we embedded. We've really tested our application. We had it tested by external company for some security issues because it was very, very important for us, and they didn't found any security issues, and we received quite good user feedback, especially comparing to previous native version. None of the users complained about app performance. There were only complaints specifically to some features that, like, I don't know, to our content, that we have too little movies, but it's not like really technical complaints. And we measured our memory and CPU consumption, and comparing to, I don't know, Netflix or other applications which are probably written natively, it's very similar. Slightly higher, but that's like 10% maybe. That's all. So just Tomek will summarize.
Yeah, so a few more words from my perspective. So what was the result of this project from the management team perspective? So first of all, we were able to deliver iOS Android application, which we were happy, and which met business expectations. As it was high quality, as Michał mentioned, it was very stable, and there was no really quality issues. There was no performance issues. So this was very, very. I believe actually it overcome our expectation truly. We have one VOD team responsible for all applications, and something that we wanted from the very beginning. Regarding cost, this project cost were 30% higher. There are evaluation of if we create this application. This is of course estimation. If we did it in iOS Android approach, so I believe it's not so big deal to make an innovative project and gain such a lot of learning that we did in this project. In terms of cost optimization, it's too early to say because it's several weeks after we release this application. But I believe that in long term, this is still possible, and this development cost optimization will happen. The project, however, took longer than the management team expected because, as I said, there was no timeline. But of course, in the management team, we had some assumption. But these delays were mostly with the bigger problems than we expected. And the second thing was that actually the VOD team, one VOD team was also responsible for other application, and there was some unplanned initiative that came to us, and the web developer team especially had to deal with. And it also impacted teamwork. So the idea to unite all developers around React Native didn't happen at the level we would like to, and exactly from the reason that the web developers could not focus fully on this React Native project. So they didn't have the same change, and they didn't have possibility to equally participate in this project and have possibility to work with React Native. At the very end, I want to give you also some learnings. So one of the things that managers been asked is, can we do a project in React Native if we don't have competency in this technology? So our project answers, after this project I can answer that this is possible, that you can actually learn new technology and deliver commercial project, but it's very, very hard and tough, and without changing this condition of the project I mentioned in one of the slides, I believe it wouldn't happen. So I believe you need to make some extra changes, extra condition to make the innovative project successful. We, at the very beginning, believed that with this web expertise in React, with native expertise in iOS and Android, and this wide community knowledge that was there in the internet, we'll be able to overcome the issues that we'll encounter. But it's turned out that without technology leader in the team, it's very difficult for the team to feel confident about their implementations and idea to solve the problem. And actually, we lost plenty of time to really wondering if this is really the go approach that we should go. Each path we took, which was the path that nobody of us went before. So with the technology there, it was very difficult for the team. And we ask for support of external company, which actually is host of this event, and they help us a lot in this project and let the team to get confident that their ideas to solve the problems actually are likely to work. The other things that was very significant in our projects is ups and downs. Usually you have innovative product, you can expect ups and downs, but I believe that in our case, where they were to the extreme, there were situations in which we actually thought that there is no way out. That's it. We have to admit that this is failure. And actually, we could overcome the situation only because maturity of the team and honest talk to the management team. And on the other side, in our management team, we were very passionate, we were supportive, and we were listening to this team. These two factors decided that we didn't give up and find a solution in a situation that most of us, even most of the team and around the team, thought that that's it. We failed. And the very, very last thing I want to tell you about the team feelings about the project and the technology, actually. At the end of the project, we asked the team a few questions, and answer to 2 questions actually give, I believe, some insights regarding the project itself and the technology. So one of the questions was, would you like to create a similar app once again in React Native? All web developers answered yes. All native developers answered no. The second question, however, was, would you like to work with React Native in the future? Do you want to create another project in React Native? All developers, including native and web developers, answered yes. Thank you. I hope you will get some learning from this, from our experience. Thank you once again.
Thank you.